Hey, how's it going there, folks? Welcome back here to a Sunday. End of the weekend is upon us. August 25th, 2024 is the date. It's about 10:23 a.m. here, California time. Latest activity here on the globe shows a 1.1 and a 1.4 into the California area, it looks like. Also some movement out across Nevada, where we're still seeing an ongoing earthquake swarm here across the Walker Lake area. Looks like had a couple more earthquakes this morning so far. Started off last night with a 3.9 and a couple other quakes in there as well. This sequence of earthquakes leading up to about 68 earthquakes so far, for a total tally with really no main shaker. We've had a 4.3 and a 4.2 mixed in with all these other magnitudes at various times, but really no big quake to set off a chain of aftershock sequences, kind of like what we're seeing right now, but could be leading to something bigger. We'll continue to keep an eye on that. California area today specifically seeing a handful of smaller quakes up and down the board. Also, as I noted last night, a handful of earthquakes up north here along the creeping segment of the San Andreas Fault. That is just north, that's just north here of the Parkfield section. Now, the Parkfield section of the San Andreas Fault, I feel, is probably overdue here for at least a 6-pointer. And let me go into why I think that is. If we look at the earthquake activity here throughout history, let me find out the right area here, because this area should see an earthquake about every 22 years. Is what the what did I do with that? Where did it go? Hold on a second here, folks. See if I can find. Oh, here we go. It was right up at the top. That's all I had to do. Parkfield section here of the San Andreas Fault, right? That is south of the creeping segment. Now, the creeping segment of the San Andreas Fault is an area of the plate boundary that slowly and sufficiently slides past each other with really no locking up, so to speak, in terms of building up strain for a big earthquake. Just south here, the Parkfield area, isn't the case there. Now, it looks like average intervals here for earthquakes runs about 22 years average, or it could be between 12 and 32 years apart. Now, there's been a handful of earthquakes here that's been studied: 1857, 1881, 1901, 1922, 1934, 1966, and then we've seen another one there in 1983, I believe. Let me see here. Yeah, it should have been up here. Let me go back up here and look and see. Here we go. There was a little article here that somehow disappeared, but now it's up here. Notice I take that back. 1966 was the last one prior to 2004. So, of course, 2004 being 20 years ago. Holy smokes, it's a crazy amount of time that has passed. I remember 2004 just like it was yesterday. Goodness. So we're coming up on the time frame here where we could see at least a 6-pointer here on the Parkfield section of the San Andreas Fault. And a lot of times we'll see a little bit of a earthquake sequence around it prior to any event. And similar to what we had seen in years past there with that 20-year interval. So we'll continue to keep an eye on that. But also there's been some wording out here that it's possible we could see this further unzip southward, where the locked area is, the San Andreas Fault, the southern segment, which runs from the southern segment, runs from the Bombay Beach, which is near the Salton Sea, and then it runs northward along the southern base of the San Bernardino Mountains. So, there's a little bit of concern here that maybe this next 6-pointer there on the Parkfield section of the San Andreas Fault could turn into a bigger earthquake if it unzips down southward. Of course, I cover this area a lot, the southern branch of the San Andreas Fault, and it's capable of producing an 8.1 magnitude earthquake there. And it's, kind of a big deal. The 1857 earthquake, right? If you guys remember that one, let me bring this up here. That was one of the largest earthquakes here on the. What's going on? Let's refresh this here. That's a 7.9 right there on the. That looks like it's just north here. That's at the top of the southern branch of the San Andreas Fault. It looks like back in 1857. Also seen that 7.5 there on the Mojave section. But the southern branch here of the San Andreas Fault is the one that's a little concerning because that can produce an 8.1 earthquake. And it has not really produced anything similar compared to, say, the San Francisco earthquake, the northern segment, and the 1857 earthquake there that I just showed you on the map. In over 300 years. Let me show you guys here this little article. So let's see. While the southern segment here of the San Andreas Fault has not seen any rupture for at least 300 years. So not only is that one, this area pretty much overdue, the southern segment, but I'm thinking also here where that 1857 earthquake struck a little bit further up north here could be potentially overdue as well. A lot of these quakes are super old in terms of the time that has passed, right? Look at that, the 7.5 right here on this area of the San Andreas Fault. It's on the southern segment here, but that's not a full rupture here. That's a portion of it. The full rupture would be an 8.1. But even so, say, for example, if we count that one as a decent rupture on the San Andreas Fault, which it was, that was back in 1812. So we're looking still at over 200 years. And the potential reoccurrence level here for this region, excuse me, 300 years for the extreme southern branch of the San Andreas Fault, but let's see what we got here, 140 to 160 year reoccurrence interval here near the Bend, right? The Big Bend area of Southern California. It is a restraining bend, thought to be where the fault locks up in the Southern California area with an earthquake reoccurrence interval of 140 to 160 years. So if you count that 7.5 earthquake as a big one, we're well over that area in terms of reoccurrence intervals. So, either way you look at it, this area is primed for a big one. We got the 6-pointer potential up here across the Parkfield section of the San Andreas Fault that we need to watch for as well. And, there's certain areas of the Parkfield section that sees the earthquake activity, and they're thinking maybe this time it could be towards the southern end, closer to where the area locks up here on the southern branch of the San Andreas Fault. That could trigger the bigger one. Say, for example, if we get another 6 here soon, because the reoccurrence interval should be around 21 years or so, and last one was back in 2004, so that's 20 years exactly. But either way, I try to point out that that this area is no doubt primed for some big earthquake activity, either way you look at it. So paying attention to these swarms and these little earthquake events out here is key into looking at maybe that we could be looking at a bigger one sooner than later. Also, there's talk of when there's heavy rainfall activity out here, lake or reservoir capacity, when areas are fuller and filled with more water out here, then that adds further strain out here into potentially triggering the bigger one. We've had a couple wet years out here along the west coast, so that could have something to do with it, with the increasing activity here recently. Let me bring up the last 30 days here. Now this is just 2.5 and above. I'm not going to go and blow up the model here and show you guys, this. It's hard to see areas of interest here with this activity. By the way, it looks like there's about 2,000 earthquakes here in the last 30 days, just in this area of Southern California. So we'll bring this up. 129 earthquakes in the last 30 days of 2.5 and above, and that's a fairly significant number. The largest one being a 5.2 up here across the area of Bakersfield to the southwest. A couple different areas that we watched here in the last couple weeks here. Bakersfield being one, the Puente Hills thrust fault over here being another one. Barstow seen a little bit of activity as well, including a 4.9 earthquake that happened back at the end of June. So overall, you can pretty much draw a region here of increasing earthquake activity that we've seen in the last 30 days. And, what sits out here? What sits out here in this big area? The plate boundary itself. And that is the area that's capable of producing, at least a 7.5 up here on the northern or the portion of the southern segment, but towards the north here. Haven't really seen anything significantly major, right, in 300 years on the entire southern segment. That 7.5, a little bit further down south of this bend area. But that, even so, that was over 200 years ago. So in this area as well, we're well overdue. So watch the plate boundary specifically here, the San Andreas Fault. With all this activity, has got me thinking here lately that we could be looking at some larger scale activity here soon. 300 years is a long time. 200 years is a long time. And the strain is out there for sure on the southern branch of the San Andreas Fault. 1906, up here across the northern end of the San Andreas Fault. 1906, probably not enough strain up here yet to build a big earthquake once again. But down here for sure. So we'll keep an eye on this area. I'm watching this region around the Parkfield segment of the San Andreas Fault for some movement recently. And with everything going on here, it's good to be paying attention, right? One may not think that that's a lot of earthquakes down here, but this is way more elevated than what we've seen in years past. And not only in just one area. You could basically say 2019. Remember the Ridgecrest area earthquakes? That was over here. 6.4, and then a day later we've seen a 7.1. There was a lot of aftershock sequences there. Thousands upon thousands of earthquakes following that event out there. But that's only one area. It's when we see multiple areas out here seeing elevated activity. Count in Nevada as well, where we're seeing our elevated movement. It looks as though things are stretching inland here, away from the plate boundary. But this whole area here is quite strained, and you got to look at the main driving factor out here, and that's going to be the plate boundary itself, right? The San Andreas Fault. So got to keep in. It's not fear mongering. It's basically being prepared and having knowledge of the increasing activity right now. It could lead to something much bigger out here in the area, and a way to not become a statistic out here is to be prepared and just make sure you have some type of earthquake plan for some larger activity, because it's coming. And it's not only the plate boundary out here, the San Andreas Fault. There's other areas that are well overdue. Lots of segments out here of the Southern California area that are well overdue. That is a fact, 100%. So a lot of time has passed since some big time movement out here, and we're living in the future now. And the earthquake activity, larger scale movement, is the future. And that's where we're at right now, folks. So we'll continue to keep an eye on it. A couple more earthquakes here since I've been chatting down in Southern California. Some small microquakes, but it's highly strained out here. Today could be the day, or maybe it could happen, tomorrow, next week, next month, next year. Either way, it's coming. We're 1 second closer to the big one out here. All right, so I figured I'd cover that with the Parkfield section here. It's just a little interesting that we should be coming up here on another 6-pointer. And I did read in these articles I've been reading here for the past couple hours that there's some chat of the next earthquake there in the Parkfield section triggering further down south here, releasing or triggering into the locked area, which is the southern branch of the San Andreas Fault here. So that, one can definitely trigger the other. You get a locked area like this here that's been building up steam for a couple hundred years, more so in some segments down here. Yeah, it's a real possibility. Things could be domino effect. All right, let's see what we got here for activity right now. As I mentioned, here in Southern California, a handful of earthquakes out here. Bakersfield area, Los Angeles. This is away from the Puente Hills Thrust Fault, which sits further down south here in Los Angeles. This is more so in between the Elsinore and the San Jacinto Fault Zone. Nothing on the San Andreas Fault for now. There's a little bit of segment or earthquake activity here just north of the Parkfield section here, leading into the creeping section here this morning. Northern California, aside from the Clear Lake volcanic field, that's these are hydrothermal plants out here. I try not to cover it a lot because it can be repetitive, but there's a whole bunch of these thermal plants out here, hydrothermal plants that take advantage of the areas below, the heated areas below, and they actually have a whole process involved of injecting raw sewage from San Francisco down into the area below, the heated area below, to create energy. Goodness. Up here outside of, this is north of Mount Lassen here, 2.1, very shallow earthquake. Sits about 5 miles north here of Mount Lassen. Mount Lassen's behaving. It's been behaving for a little while. Up into the Pacific Northwest, not a whole lot going on. A couple smaller earthquakes there across the Cascades. And Yellowstone supervolcano. One could say things are overdue in this area, but we're talking about hundreds of thousands of years here. That that's a long time frame for a supervolcano. It could be another 10,000, another 20,000 before that thing pops. But we would obviously see earthquake activity in this area a lot. Not just these little bitty earthquake swarms that pop up from time to time. Right now, nothing going on. Not a whole lot of earthquake activity whatsoever around the board here. And if you talk about a supervolcano, GPS systems here would be key to watching that. We would see huge inflation out here. You can see the caldera right here in this circle. We would see that thing rise up a lot. And if anything, it's been going down. Back in 2000, I can't wait to get my new mouse today. It's coming, but I gotta wait. It's coming in the mail. 2000, back in 2004, we've seen a little bit of uptick. That died down for a little bit. We've seen a big earthquake swarm back there in 2008, 2009 as well. It triggered a lot of fear-mongering tactics there on the many social media sites. Caused a lot of panic for no reason at all. There was a bunch of 3s and 4s and inflation going on, but this is very minimal inflation compared to what we would see at a supervolcano. But then everything died off, the news died off, and then we've seen a little bit of activity stretch back up again in 2014. But since then, in the last 10 years, we've been going downhill in terms of inflation out here around. This is the caldera area of Yellowstone. So, this would have to keep going up and up and up and up to make me think that something is brewing out there at the Yellowstone supervolcano, but it's not. Pretty quiet out there. New Madrid seismic zone, a couple smaller earthquakes. This is another area that can see some big time earthquakes, right? 1811, 1812. They've seen the series of 7-pointers, upper 7-pointers out here. Today, that would put this area in a lot of trouble. 1812, 1912, 2012. It's been over 200 years, folks, since we've seen any major activity out here as well. Now, I think it takes a little bit longer here in terms of stress accumulation compared to out across the plate boundary. I can't remember exactly what the slip rate is here on this area, but I don't think we're quite ready to see any big earthquake activity out here in this region anytime soon. The slip rate, like I said, is quite low, but they can get some big earthquakes out here. For now, just a couple 2s and an occasional 3 or so. Outside the Great Smoky Mountains area here, around Tennessee. 2.1 from yesterday, it looks like. See if we got anything going on here for the big island of Hawaii. Got a little bit of earthquake activity here today. So let's run over and check it out real quick. And I switch over here to the Microsoft Edge browser because for some reason, I don't know why, but whenever I use the Google Chrome here on that on this USGS website, it doesn't function like it should. Like, say for example, it doesn't pop up these images here when I click on them. That's a crazy looking signature right there. That looks like somebody was maybe moving something around. Some type of error going on there. But earthquake activity going to be well defined here in the spikes, and it does look like a little bit of increasing movement here today across the Kilauea volcano. Tilt meter out here shows relatively stable. Nothing changed since our last intrusion there almost a week ago. Overall inflation at the summit area. Let's check this out here real quick. Leveling off. We've been pretty much stationary here for the last couple days. There's our magma intrusion event. Notice the loss of magma from the summit area off to the upper east rift zone. That lost it here, but we're coming back up a little bit in terms of inflation. And still overall we're quite heightened here. The highest area observed here since about 2018, since the last eruption there on the lower east rift zone. All right, let's go back over here, see what we got. One earthquake way up north here, little 2.7. 11 miles deep for that quake. Anything major going on here across the globe? Let's see what we got. They finally decided to add the earthquake there in Canada. 4.2. I think that was a 4.8. Earthquakes Canada reporting that as a 4.8 up there yesterday. But yeah, it wasn't on the globe all night. Or all day yesterday. Wasn't there for the update either, but looks like they added it on now. I'm going to lower this back a little bit here. And the reason for that is because a lot of times when we get earthquake swarms out here, say for example California or Kilauea volcano, I have to adjust the time date here, or otherwise it takes away the multitude of quakes here on the globe. And it's not accurate in terms of the last 24 hours of earthquake activity out here. But this is accurate now. This is the last 24 hours of earthquakes, EMSC, and the USGS on here as well. 5.1 looks like a newer quake here around Papua New Guinea. Going to be this earthquake right here. 57 miles deep here into this area. A couple different subduction zones that sit in this region. But nothing big for now. Deeper quake activity continuing there into the Tonga Trench. Look at that. That's a lot of deeper activity on the globe. Some deep activity here across the Java Trench as well. Goodness. So you got to remember, these deeper quakes can trigger and set up a domino effect here for some larger scale adjustment at the surface levels. 3.1 India. A couple smaller quakes around the Mediterranean. Really nothing going on here across the Atlantic. Let's see here. Give a quick glance at Iceland. We'll go to the live from Iceland site here real quick. See if we got anything. Last night we had at least one active fountaining going on. It looks like that's the same one. A little foggy out there. Some volcanic gases. Let's see here. Oh, that's look at that, man. That is crazy. I seen this yesterday. It's beautiful how, and we see this out here in Northern California a lot of times in the big fires. They create these pyrocumulus clouds. But that in itself right here, this volcanic eruption is creating its own cumulus clouds. That is crazy. I would love to do a time lapse of that. You guys see that? All that heat, the smoke going up into the cooler air above the surface, creating condensation, so to speak, but in a big fashion to create these cumulus clouds. Absolutely stunning. I love clouds. I'm a big time weather fan, so Stuff like this gives me the giggles, so to speak. All right, anyway, there is one active vent out there, obviously. Not so much across the rest of the fissure there, but yeah, just we'll see how long this one lasts. They've been lasting for a little while, a couple weeks, and then they die off, then build up some more accumulation of magma below, and then pop again, and then it's just a rinse and repeat cycle. All right, our little bitty sunspot here, you can see it earth facing right now. Still the same one we've been watching here over the last couple days. Throwing out a little sea flare, it looks like. Hello. There we go. Yeah, upper sea flare. Not quite into the M flare category yet, but we've seen an occasional M flare from that region in a couple different areas over the last 3 days. Nothing big. Really no Earth-directed flaring or Earth-directed CMEs for now. Nothing major here in the Aurora forecast. Still have a 15% chance for X flare, 70% for M flare, C flare at 99% chance or so. And our sunspot area is going to be 3,800 right here. That's the area that's seeing the C flare activity right now. And really, it's about the only area that I can see here on the Earth-facing side that is of noteworthy complexity. But even so, it's not X flare capable, I don't think. If anything, C and M flare activity in this region. Got a couple active regions that will be coming around the eastern limb here in the next few days that we'll keep an eye on as well. As far as Storm Prediction Center goes, well, we got a little bit of slight risk category out here today across the northern plains and portions of the Four Corners area. Tornado threat up across North and South Dakota. Not a big threat, but a 2% chance out here. So if you enjoying the weekend out there, make sure you guys stay weather aware for some spinning water vapor, wind, and some hail threats out there as well from these thunderstorms that will pop up throughout the day today. All right, I am out of here, folks. Have a good day, and just be prepared. Earthquake activity comes and goes, right? And there's a lot of naysayers. Oh, scientists and geologists have been saying the big one's going to be happening for 20 years now. Well, that's 20 years closer we are to the bigger one out here. And we got to pay attention to these little areas that are showing uptick. It's not just one area. It's all around the area that can produce an 8.1. So what does that tell you, right? Doesn't that draw like a bullseye effect out here? So keep an eye on the San Andreas Fault. That's the best thing we can do right now with all this elevated activity around it. We'll catch you guys back out here a little bit later on this evening. Just going to sit out here and enjoy the rest of what's left of the weekend here. It's supposed to be back up in the low 90s today after yesterday it was only about 73 degrees, and that is well below normal here for Northern California. 92 today. I think that's a little bit more average, but I'm done with the 90s and 100s. I want some 60s and 70s out here. That would be beautiful. I enjoyed the rain that we got out here as well. I love it. All right, have a good one, folks. Stay safe, and again, enjoy your Sunday.